one of the most anticipated days of the season. It's the end of the classics in spring. It's a physically tiring race, isn't it, this, but mentally stressful. Breakaway's been caught. The tension seems to be sharper here.
Evenepoel really far down here.
It's Tadej Pogačar's team who are waiting, who are ready, and not in this shot.
Oh, it just feels so inevitable, doesn't it?
Here he goes to the front, Tadej Pogačar at the front on La Redoute. He's seated, he's moving, and straight away was a gap. How easy was that? It was a click of a finger, a seated move, an attack, and nobody can live with him. We're at the end of the list of superlatives. A third Liege win, and the first man ever to be on successive monument podiums for 6 of them.
I mean, what is there left to say about Tadej Pogačar? I read a quote calling him a monument muncher. I love that. Munching the monuments.
It is mad, like all the monuments this year, he's not finished off the podium. It's just bonkers.
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah. What are you thinking if you're watching this from afar and your name is Jonas Vingegaard?
If I was him, I wouldn't be too bothered.
Really?
Yeah, I wouldn't be too bothered about it. He'd probably getting quite excited that he's putting on all this effort already before the tour. But it's true though, like he's backed it up there. But I don't know, even in, was it Amstel, he said he was a little bit tired.
Yeah.
And that's only after doing 1 day and he's got 3 weeks to do. So I think Jonas would probably be like, this is working in my favour.
It does take it out of you, like the more one-day races you do, because you just go so deep every day. Like the recovery takes longer and longer each time, but alternatively, when you're winning everything, you kind of have that motivation of like, oh, I'm on good form, like I can keep this going. So it depends, can he carry it that far, you know?
I don't think he can. I think like the days before...
Is this wishful thinking a little bit?
No, you think if Tadej's got a 1 day race, he's got the 2 days before it where he's tapering pretty much, the day after, and so he's probably got at least 4 days of easy riding and then one really hard day. Like Jonas might have done 25 hours in that week. You know, it's like that, just those 4 days. So it's, I think Jonas, for him, he'll be looking going, it's good for him, but this is better for me than what he's doing.
I think that's the key. Better for Jonas, probably, anyway, to be doing what he's doing. Even if he hadn't crashed and had concussion, he's not going to be racing very much. It's just not what he does. They're not going to be panicking, I don't think, watching Tadej do Tadej things, are they?
I think that we have to wait and see when he will race, because we can talk. He saw in television that Tadej is really the strongest. But the thing that I noticed is it's so easy. He didn't attack. Was like the
just
pace
accelerate
was.
To leave behind.
He has a good team for the Ardennes because I was impressed also for the team. Young Christian, for instance, did a really good job, but now he's really the strongest.
I just don't think he needs a team. Like at the Tour he does, but like in the Classics, what's he need? Like he doesn't need anything. He can sit there, let it be slow. That's it. Literally,
a bike and the motivation for winning. That's it.
I think as long as you arrive in the key points at the front.
The key is he's been winning. That gives such motivation and confidence that you're doing the right thing.
And for the team behind him as well, they have that motivation that they're not just winning in the Ardennes, but also all the other races they're doing. They're at the top level, so whatever team they put in, everyone's got that motivation to win, and I think they have that main goal behind them. So,
but this is the other thing as well. Like if you look at the team he's had throughout the Cobble Classics and the Ardennes Classics, there's not too dissimilar to what his Tour de France team's going to be. So those guys have been racing hard throughout this as well. So it's not like...
It's not just all about him being fresh. Everyone else has to be fresh
as well.
That
could be really interesting, actually.
I think it will be interesting. What I think will be more interesting is if you go back to 2 years ago, when Jonas took 2.5 minutes out of him in 1 day in a time trial, I think that's forgotten about. And even the day where he took 7 minutes out of him on one mountain day, 6 minutes out of him, I think they forget about that through last year and Jonas being injured. I don't think they're underestimating him, but I think if you look at Jonas, what he did last year, where he won that one stage after being on his bike for 6 weeks ahead of the Tour de France, he was still able to beat the best Tadej we've ever seen, barring this year. He's got a much better prep than what he did last year. So if I was UAE, I would be nervous about him, because when Jonas is on top form, Tadej's never beaten him.
Yeah, and I guess if I were them, I'd be nervous that we're not seeing Jonas, because they don't know how he's going. So he's a
that consistent training, Lewis, like you said before. Tadej's got that taper race, you know, recovery, taper, race recovery, and maybe one solid training ride per week, whereas Jonas has that consistent, like,
He's got
day
7
on day
days.
on day on day
7
training.
days,
Yeah. And I think that can make a lot of difference when you come later in the season, because you get to the end of the classics and sometimes you think, God, I've barely trained for 6 weeks, and yeah, that can take its toll later on.
What about Remco though? What do we need to see from him at Romandie? Because that was a bit of a curveball, wasn't it? Liege, Bastogne, Liege, and not quite being there at all.
I generally think what we've just been talking about, like the consistency of training, I think this is Remco's consistency. He's done these Ardennes Classics, which is 2 weeks, where he's been up and down with his training. I think before it, leading into Brabant-Superior and Amstel, he was able to taper, but he was able to train really good up to it. I think the little bit in between where he can't really commit himself to 7 days a week training, he started to dip a little bit, and he might be overtraining going into Liège, trying to keep up with what he wants for later on in the year. But I think for him, he will be good in the Tour because he's got that consistency of training. We know that it works. Look at Brabant-Superior and Amstel.
Yeah,
It was incredible off of 1 month,
Yeah.
1 month solid block of training. He was super good. So I think ahead of the Tour, it'd be really good. But if he tries to race loads, it'll start to fluctuate like it has done in the Ardennes. That's my opinion of it.
I agree with Adam because
Jesse.
also Liège. No, but because also Liège was one. I listened to the riders, was really hot.
Yeah.
Maybe will be a no day for Remco because Wout van Aert was really a good performance, I think. So we have to wait. But I think that can work well and also for the show, because if they are 3, it's better
That's
than
what we
2.
want.
Huh?
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, 3, a couple of punctures, you know, some mechanicals maybe.
Just
something,
along the way.
Just, you know, just something like a minute, 40 seconds here or there, that'd be great.
Speaking of Romandie, did we see Sam Watson winning the prologue like half a day after being called up to the race?
Do you know what's bonkers about that? If you watch the replay, he doesn't even lunge. So he doesn't even lunge. It's like it's down to that like 0.7 seconds, whatever it was. He didn't even lunge. He could have had it by a second. But it is mad, like getting called up then, and then there's one thing getting turned up and doing a good ride.
Yeah.
There's another thing getting called up and then winning a World Tour race with some of the biggest names in cycling now. I mean, this is completely opposite to what we're talking about, but I remember a race in end of year, Tournai Banch. We'd had a few drinks the week before and leading up to it. We had Tour of Belgium, shock. But everyone knew it was the end of the season, so there was, I think there was 7 people on the team. We all used to bring like 4 bottles of wine each in our suitcase. And then we'd sit in a room and drink them each evening. So we'd have like a bit of a chat. Anyway, the first day of, I forgot, Franco-Belge, I was like, I need a good result. I'm not going to drink. So the first day of Franco-Belge, I missed a breakaway of 80 riders, and I was 11 minutes down. I was like, right.
You missed a break of 80 riders.
That's not a break.
That's being dropped from the peloton.
Oh, no, there was a break. I remember it like so vividly. I remember it went across cobbles and it was crosswind, and I was at the back. And I remember I was sat next to Geraint Thomas at the time, and I was like, I really should have been in that. And then that was it, we're 11 minutes down. So the next couple of days, I was like, I'll have a drink in the evening.
On
now.
it every night.
Yeah, next day, second. Next day, I think 15th. Last day, second again. So I was like, buzzing, no pressure, did well.
Sometimes when you do lose that pressure, like you are able to just...
This gets better. Better.
Okay.
So at the end of Franco-Belge, it was Mickey Schaar's birthday, he was in the team, and we decided to go out celebrating, and we didn't get back. I'm not going to disclose what time in the morning / next day we got back, and then the day after was Bench Tournai Banch. Yeah, a couple of hours. And then, so that was that night, and then we had a half a night's sleep the next night. Then we had Bench Tournai Banch, and because we'd done all right in Franco-Belge, there was sort of no pressure. And I remember sitting at the back the whole race, just being like, God, I feel rough, God, I feel rough, God, I feel rough. Last 50k, I was like a new man. Anyway,
It's all the carbs from the drink.
Exactly, but I won it. I won it. So I won, and that team, if you speak to, I can't name all the riders that were in the team, but at the time, it was like a little legendary week of what happened that week. So it was just like no pressure, we'd all had a great time, and we'd done absolutely brilliant. So I think the no pressure thing, you got it wrong, you need to just, is what
That's
it is.
where I'm going wrong.
Marion Rousse is race director of the biggest event in women's cycling, the Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, a position which allows her to shape a sport that has mixed memories for her after her all too brief career as a rider.
Je crois que j'ai tout le temps été amoureuse du vélo. Je pense que c'est vraiment dans mon ADN. Je viens d'une famille de cyclistes, mon père était à un bon niveau. Mes cousins étaient professionnels à l'époque de Bouygues Télécom. Donc vraiment, j'ai eu l'habitude d'aller sur les courses de vélo alors que j'étais encore en poussette, dans la poussette. Et j'ai commencé par contre la compétition à l'âge de 6 ans. Quand tu commences très jeune, à 6 ans, tu t'imagines pas forcément faire carrière. Surtout que je pense qu'à notre époque, on ne voyait pas du cyclisme féminin à la télé. Donc en fait, je ne pouvais pas rêver de devenir professionnelle. Ma course préférée, c'était le Tour de France. Mais t'as beau avoir 6 ans, tu comprends bien que tu n'es pas un homme et que tu ne seras pas dans le peloton masculin. C'est pas un métier pour nous les femmes. Donc voilà, au début, tu fais ça sérieusement, puis tu progresses, puis tu arrives en équipe de France, tu gagnes des courses, et puis tu rentres dans une équipe dite professionnelle. Et en fait, il faut que tu ailles travailler parce que tu n'as pas de salaire. Donc, il faut bien se nourrir, il faut bien en vivre. Donc, c'était un peu démoralisant et c'est ce qui a fait que j'ai arrêté ma carrière assez tôt. Déjà, quand j'étais jeune, donc j'étais comme tous les gamins, hommes ou femmes, tu regardes une course de vélo. Après, je me revois, je regarde Paris-Roubaix, je prends mon vélo et après, je vais m'entraîner. Et puis, tu joues à Tom Bonnen. Tu dis, je suis Tom Bonnen sur mon vélo. Mais du coup, là, tu offres l'opportunité à une petite fille grâce au Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift de pouvoir jouer à Demi Vollering, à Elisa Longo-Borghini. Ça, c'est chouette, tu les fais rêver. Et moi, à mon époque, j'ai connu le vélo où je me changeais au cul du camion, en fait. Les bus, ça n'existait pas. Les organisateurs, ils faisaient comme ils pouvaient, c'est-à-dire que c'était que des bénévoles qui ne gagnaient aucun argent. Donc, en fait, on logeait dans des lycées. Je me suis vue dormir dans des casernes, quand même, de pompiers, de gendarmerie, enfin... Vraiment une époque que je ne souhaite à personne. En même temps, on rigolait, mais bon, j'étais pas payée non plus, donc il fallait que j'aille travailler. Et c'est pour ça que je pense que mon vécu dans le cyclisme féminin avant m'a beaucoup aidée dans cette fonction de directrice de course, où en fait, j'ai connu le vélo féminin avant, et je sais où je veux qu'il aille. Christian Prudhomme qui m'a appelée et qui m'a dit « Écoute Marion, je ne sais pas si tu en as entendu parler, mais avec ADSO, on veut de nouveau avoir un Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift et on veut que ce soit toi la directrice. » Voilà. Il me l'a dit clairement, il m'a dit « De toute façon, on n'a pas d'autre option, on veut que ce soit toi parce que tu sais ce que c'est le cyclisme féminin, tu as connu l'époque qui était celle d'avant, tu étais aussi organisatrice de courses où j'étais aussi dans l'organisation du Tour de la Provence. Tu as la casquette aussi média, donc tu vas savoir bien en parler et tu sais gérer les interviews, tu sais comment ça se passe, tu connais aussi l'importance des médias. Donc en fait, je cochais aussi beaucoup de cases qui ont fait que ASO s'est dirigé vers moi. La première édition, c'était... moi, j'étais persuadée que ça allait fonctionner, mais il fallait être persuasif. Il fallait répondre aux médias qui se demandaient si c'était une bonne chose ou pas le retour du Tour de France Femmes. Donc la première année, c'était important parce qu'on ne connaissait pas les championnes. On ne voyait pas vraiment du vélo à la télé. Donc il fallait quand même qu'il y ait une voix qui porte et qui dise « Non, mais vous allez voir, c'est super ». Et dès la première édition, je pense qu'on s'est fait adopter par les gens qui aiment le vélo, mais également par le grand public. Et c'est ça la force du Tour, c'est que tu parles à un public de connaisseurs, de passionnés, mais également à des gens qui ne vont pas regarder du vélo tout le restant de l'année. Et nous, le Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, il était essentiel pour le développement du cyclisme féminin en règle générale, parce qu'on allait avoir cette visibilité qu'on n'avait pas. Parce qu'on allait intéresser des sponsors qui allaient se dire « Ah ouais, ça vaut le coup d'investir dans le cyclisme féminin. Tiens, on va mettre notre argent là-dedans. » Et puis aux gens qui se rendent compte que c'était super à regarder, qu'il y avait du spectacle, du suspense, que ça roulait vite. C'est pas un cadeau qu'on a fait non plus. C'est pas, on s'est pas dit tiens, on va créer un Tour de France femmes, puis ça va être génial. C'est pas un cadeau qu'on fait aux femmes. C'est parce que en fait, on savait que ça allait fonctionner et qu'elles le méritaient. Ce que je dois dire, c'est que Christian m'a beaucoup épaulée. En fait, il me dit tout le temps qu'il a envie de faire avec moi ce que Jean-Marie Leblanc avait fait à son époque quand il a pris la tête du Tour de France. Donc il m'a dit, moi je suis là les premières années, les premiers mois pour te montrer. Et puis voilà, c'est une personne avec qui je m'entends bien aussi. Donc on a la même passion du vélo et il m'a surtout appris que c'est pas un métier d'être directeur de tour. C'est comme une mission en fait. T'as beau avoir un contrat, un nombre de jours à l'année à faire, c'est pas comme ça que ça marche, c'est que t'es directrice du tour tout au long de l'année.
Does that feel alien to you then, in a way, when she's talking about not having women's racing on the TV and not having female cyclists look up to you?
Yeah, I think I'm in quite a unique position because I feel like I joined elite cycling right when it kind of started turning, where the money really 2020.
Okay.
So really where women's cycling took off with the TV coverage, but I'm also in that unique position because both my parents were racing. So my mum experienced the old school cycling, so I do have the knowledge of really what everyone went through back then, and I can really sympathise with that. And kind of being in back then Little Trek, where we did have a average age that was older in the team, I feel like you really need to be able to sympathise with these women who have really gone through quite a lot to be in the position that we are in today. They've really fought for a lot.
But I love that era of women having to have full-time jobs and going to university and having to race professionally only in name. I love that that's
But this wasn't all
considered
of
history.
them, though, was it? Like, back then, it wasn't all the women. I think that was the big
In
thing
what way?
with women's cycling, is there was a lot of women that were still being paid to be professional, but the majority weren't being paid.
Yeah,
so
it was minimal money.
It was minimal money, but it was enough to keep them racing, and that'd be their only job. And I think that was the difficulty with women's cycling back then, that if it was on TV, there'd be these massive gaps between the best and the worst, and they weren't like the difference between a mountain top that's maybe a 10-15 minute gap. It's like 40-50 minutes, and you can't put that onto television.
Then you get to see who can train full time and who has to you know, work in Tesco's and then go out training afterwards, who's got the hours that can really put in. And then it's like the ones who are paying the most have the benefit of that, and then the ones who still have to go out and do their jobs, the gap gets bigger because of that rather than getting smaller. And I do feel like nowadays we've moved on from that, and you know, I know there's still quite a lot to go, but like I'm in a very unique place where, like, at the age of 23, I'm able to call this my full-time job, and everyone stepping into the sport now can say, this is my job, this is my career, this is my profession, whereas before they didn't have that. And it's really nice to just see where it's going now.
Think of 5-6 years ago, there was Annemiek and maybe
Anna.
Now it's really good because if we look this first part of the season, we have a lot of protagonists, different from ages, because Pak Pietersen is young, Kim Lecour, for instance, has arrived after, because she arrived from mountain bike. It's for this that I think that, okay, we are doing a lot, but we need more. We need more hours, because if I have to think about Amsterdam Gold Race, for instance, we go live and we didn't know how the big breakaway born.
I think it's really, the thing with women's racing is that I find within the peloton still, it's not the racing, it's the general women's peloton in one piece, is that the men have so much money that they can afford to send Classics team to altitude, Tour de France team to altitude. The women's team, there is still a big discrepancy from being the best and not the best. And I think the best in the women's team, there's, say if you've got the Tour de France team, women's team, those 6, 7, 8 riders will go up to altitude. The rest, they will never see it. They'll never see a training camp apart from the one in December and Jan. After that, forget it. You compare that to men's, pretty much every rider in a single men's team will go up to altitude, and that's the big difference between the money involved with it. And that's, I think that's where that needs to come in more, because then the discrepancy between not the best and the best will start to rise more. But the women,
the teams, not just the riders.
Exactly. And I think with the women that aren't doing it, they have to work so much harder to prove themselves. But it's all down to money. You look at Demi, if she's on €1 million, Demi can afford to go up to a training camp pretty much all year round and just never come down from it. She can do her own. A woman that's on 50, 60 grand a year and she might have kids at home, whatever it is, she can't afford to go and do that. So it makes it even harder for her that the team then doesn't support that because they can't afford it. So there's still a lot of work to be done. But I think with the platform of the Tour de France with Zwift, I think it's the best possible outcome for women's cycling is where it's pushing it to be.
I also think where they've positioned it right after the men's tour finishes, it's like everyone's kind of on a come down of, oh no, the tour's finished, but oh wait, actually we've got this whole week, 10 days now of the women's side to it, and it's not having that clash, because sometimes when there's the two live streams on the same day, it's like, which one do you want to watch, rather than, you know, okay, the men's is finished, now I can put all my focus on the women's racing and watch every day of that if I really want. It kind of puts focus on not just the stars, but the domestiques having that extra TV time, because, you know, sometimes they don't get shown. And I think now in women's cycling, where it is getting better, there's, you know, you can see the work that these other riders are putting in, and it's not just the stars. And you, like, now's a time where you can have a career more as a domestique, and you don't have to just be winning everything. And I also think that creates a bit more of like a good team atmosphere, because you're not all just fighting to be the star, because you know that's where the money's coming from. Actually, it really brings in that team environment, and you know that if you're working the first 50Ks, you're going to get shown, and that work is going to get shown, and your family at home watching is going to be able to see you. The sponsors are going to be able to see you, and that can really feed into the race, and the fact that everyone then commits to this leader.
It's really important to, I think, to show that they are riders, they are women, someone is a mother, someone has other interests.
Actually, like the early breakaways in the men's team, you always see that, whereas often in the women's races, like the early breakaway is brought back just before the TV even comes on. So those smaller teams who really need that exposure, those sponsors, like they often don't get the TV time that they probably should get, because it doesn't start until later. So the fact that it's really becoming even more hours on the TV
but
time
also
is so much better.
I think about the stage of echelons of UAE Tour. This was really interesting to see from the beginning. Because
you don't just see an explosion.
We can explain how the echelon is born and the great job we did for Elisa, for instance. Without this live coverage for the entire race, it's impossible, because you arrive and you have the breakaway with the 5 minutes, and
you're not just asking questions like, oh, why is this person there? You see, oh, maybe they made it and they exploded, or they did this job, and it's nice to actually see what's physically happening rather than just arriving there and there's 6 groups on the road and you don't know what's going on.
Passionnante. Je crois qu'un mot qui ressort, c'est que pour l'instant, la première partie de saison, parce que c'est vrai qu'après Liège, Bastogne, Liège, c'est la première partie de saison finalement qui est passée. Ce que je constate, c'est qu'on a eu pratiquement sur toute la période des classiques une vainqueur différente. Et surtout qu'à 20, 10, 5, jusqu'à l'arrivée, tu as du suspense. Tu n'as personne qui écrase vraiment, où tu te dis, allez, 80 bornes de l'arrivée, la course, elle est pliée. Non.
49 seconds is the gap from Roy Akers and Vollering to the yellow jersey. Whatever Cassia Doma has left, she has got to throw it at this final kilometre. Vollering makes history at the top of Alpe d'Huez. She takes the stage. Cassia Doma has got to take herself to oblivion. She drives for home. Cassia Doma saves the yellow jersey. That was an Alpe d'Huez ascent for the history books.
C'est historique. Et je me souviens très bien, j'ai la chance d'être donc dans la voiture de direction de course, donc on était juste derrière Demi, Vollering et Roy Akers. Il y avait Christian à mes côtés et devant il y avait Bernard Thévenet. La voiture elle était géniale déjà. Et en fait, chaque 5 km, on disait non, bon, Vollering elle va gagner, c'est bon. Bah non, en fait, ah non, peut-être c'est Neia Doma. Ah non, Vollering, ah peut-être Neia Doma. Et en fait, t'as beau être connaisseur du vélo, tu ne pouvais pas deviner. Là, c'était incroyable. Donc on passe la ligne, Vollering passe la ligne, on passe la ligne. Et là, on attend sur le bord, comme ça, accoudé aux barrières, et on compte. Et les bonifs, et tu comptes, tu dis, bon, attends, il y a 10 secondes de bonification, 4 secondes. Là, tu dis, incroyable. Quelle image pour le sport féminin. C'est même plus du cyclisme féminin à ce moment-là.
Pour le vélo tout court.
Pour le vélo, pour le sport en règle générale. Là c'est beau. Là, elles ont tapé fort. Voilà, cette année, je le trouve très dur, avec beaucoup de montagnes qui arrivent très tôt dans la semaine. Voilà, déjà, tu as 2 premières journées, donc grand départ depuis la Bretagne, arrivé au sommet de Plumelec sur la première étape, 3 passages, étape pour les puncheuses. Le lendemain, étape dans le Finistère. Donc le Finistère, c'est des ascensions qui sont assez courtes, mais très raides. Arrivée à Quimper, la même arrivée où Peter Sagan s'était imposé et où c'est en faux plat montant. Ensuite, on aura plus 2 étapes pour les sprinteuses. Il faudra qu'elles en profitent parce que ça sera les 2 seules occasions avec l'arrivée à Angers, par exemple. Et ensuite, directement, dès qu'on arrive départ Clermont-Ferrand, même l'étape de Guéret, la veille, étape de Guéret, le final vraiment, où dans les derniers kilomètres, c'est que des montées et des descentes, donc très punchy. Et ensuite, à partir du moment où tu arrives à l'étape de Clermont-Ferrand qui arrive à Ambert, c'est que de la moyenne montagne, voire de la montagne. Avant, on avait tendance à faire samedi, dimanche, le dernier week-end de la montagne. Mais ça reflète aussi en fait, le niveau global du cyclisme féminin qui a augmenté. On s'est dit le niveau est plus homogène. On peut se permettre de faire un parcours plus difficile. Donc. Et là où je suis le plus fière en tant que directrice du Tour de France Femmes avec Zwift, c'est de voir l'envie de filles qui avaient pris leur retraite. Anna van der Breggen qui pendant 3 ans fait plus de vélo et qui se dit moi je reprends le vélo pour faire le Tour de France Femmes. Quand je vois Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, ça faisait 10 ans qu'elle avait arrêté la route, elle a tout gagné, j'ai encore championne olympique l'année dernière de VTT, qui dit « Moi, je reviens sur la route parce que dans les 3 ans, je veux gagner le Tour de France Femmes. » Tu te dis « Bon, c'est qu'on a quand même bien travaillé et que ça donne envie à dimanche championne de revenir sur la route. » Vraiment ravie et on voit ce qu'on a réussi à faire avec le cyclisme féminin, qui a un impact aussi sur le calendrier, puisqu'on a vu le retour de Milan-San Remo cette année, qui était super à suivre aussi. Donc voilà, l'engouement global du cyclisme féminin, il est magnifique et moi je m'en réjouis, quoi. Je ne pense pas que à ma course, je vois avec une vision globale que c'est super ce qui nous arrive. L'année dernière, non, j'ai bien conscience, je commente assez de courses de vélo pour savoir que ce ne sera pas chaque année la même chose, mais honnêtement, on va avoir du suspense cette année parce que, ok, Demi Vollering, pour moi, ça reste quand même la grandissime favorite parce qu'elle a toute une équipe à son service, parce qu'elle arrive revancharde de l'année dernière. Mais il ne faudra pas enterrer Nia demain. Elisa Longo-Borghini, c'est pareil. Si Pauline Ferrand-Prévot, avec le début de saison qu'elle nous fait et puis sa détermination, je pense que si elle vient avec l'objectif de faire podium, voire mieux, c'est qu'elle sait qu'elle en a les possibilités. Anna van der Breggen, Kopecky, enfin, voilà, il y a quand même pas mal de filles qui sont capables de briller au plus haut niveau. Et évidemment qu'en tant que Française, on attend un successeur de Bernard Hinault depuis tellement d'années qu'avec Christian, souvent on se taquine parce que je lui dis « Mais Christian, le successeur de Bernard Hinault, elle sera française. Ça sera une fille. » Et il en rigole et il est d'accord.
Do you know what I loved as well? Her pointing out Demi having a full team behind her this year, because let's not forget, she came within 4 seconds last year and her team did not work for her. And I don't think that's any kind of a secret, is it? She was already leaving the team. We didn't know yet where she was going to go, but she did. And so she did all of that without any team support. Whenever she crashed, the team didn't wait for her. This year, it's going to be a totally different matter.
It'd be very different. I think it would be a lot harder for her this year to win, though, than it was last year, even without the teammates, even with a full team behind her.
Why?
More riders competing for the win. Yeah. I think there's so many more that are going to be competitive, and I think with Lotte, that will add a really different dynamic in. In my eyes, she's similar to like a Pogačar that can climb very well, but she can go on for stage wins and get bonus seconds, and she can take time in unexpected places.
And sprint.
Yeah,
And
but
sprint.
she's
can
been
sprint
good, but she's not been dominant this season. Lotte Kopecky, but maybe that's
Yeah,
because
but
she's
maybe
going
it's
for
a
the Tour
part
France.
of the journey to
And
the Tour
she's
de
not
France.
done that many race
Yeah.
days either. She spent a lot of time in altitude, so whether that plays a bit of a factor into it.
And she worked a lot for Lorena Wiebes.
Exactly.
The Kopecky we saw in the first part of the season, except Tour of Flanders, was domestic for Wiebes. So I think that we have to wait.
I think the main one's Pauline.
Do you?
Pauline will
What, the main
be the
favourite or the main dark horse?
She's not really a dark
Underdog.
horse anymore, is she? I wouldn't say she's dark horse anymore. I think she's one of the firm favourites.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, just even one person looking after you, and it's Voss. On stages for positioning, all that kind of stuff. She's got probably the best woman in the peloton to position her in the right place, look after her, tell her what to do,
And they can bounce off
advise
each
her.
other, yeah.
Exactly. So I think for me, and being a French woman in France for the French Women's Tour de France, it would be bonkers. Like we just heard then from Marion, the person after Bernard Hinault to win the Tour de France will be a woman.
Yeah.
And it could be quite easily Pauline.
How lucky were we to get the edition that we got last year? There were 4 seconds, the tightest in the history of the event, men's or women's. Could we be that lucky again?
No.
No.
No, I don't think
I
so.
don't think so.
I think
Even
the
though
levels
it's more
just gone up.
competitive this year, arguably.
I think it would go up, but I think it'll be more as in the men's race where they'll all be really tight, but you'll get big explosions. So I think it's just who's going to be able to back it up day after day, and I think that's what Demi will be really good at. But I just think with the nature, like I mentioned, Kopecky, she'll be so aggressive on stages, but in short blasts to try and get little bits of time. And I think it's the women that lose time will then put Kopecky under pressure on the longer mountains, and that's when we'll see big time gaps.
Where will we go next with the Tour de France? Like, I really, really love that they haven't jumped straight into it being 3 weeks or even 2 weeks, and that it's really gradually, sensitively growing, you know, in proportion to where we are in women's racing. How far does it go?
I mean, I think it will eventually get longer, maybe not 3 weeks, but I think at some point it will at least arrive to 2 weeks. But I think it's been really good that it's not just jumped directly in there, and it's allowed there to be really iconic editions of the race to get the fan support and to see the kind of racing that women do, and then almost year by year make it longer. And I think women's cycling needs to grow in terms of numbers before we can really make it to 2 weeks, because at the moment we don't have enough domestiques to be able to support the lead riders to arrive to that length of race. The general consensus is that eventually it will arrive to 2 weeks, and that will be, you know, our version of a Grand Tour. However, I think we're really happy with the 10 days it is at the moment, especially with the amount of climbing that they are putting in to some of these iconic stages, that if you do too much of that, like, it really just puts off some riders.
It only benefits climbers.
Yeah.
Like someone that's good at
What, a
climbing.
longer race?
Yeah, a longer
Yeah.
race, of course, if there's more opportunities.
Although, as Marion just said there's only 2 opportunities for the sprinters. A longer race means you've got more chance to put in some sprint stages, arguably.
We
Time
can bring
trial.
back Roubaix to the women's.
I mean, why not though? It'll probably eventually happen.
Yeah.
It definitely will. And
Maybe
it should do
one.
as well,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure it should. But I think if you just make it 3 weeks, it suits maybe 10 people in the peloton. And I think those 10 people are going to be the best climbers. But if they lose time one day, it's like with the men's Grand Tour. You know, you make it a little bit longer still, make it 4 weeks. You've got another week to try and get back that time. But it's true though, isn't it? You don't need to, but you've only got another week to get back that time, and someone might get tired. So I just think it's having it 3 weeks pointless.
With 2 weeks, you have also a recovery day, a rest day, maybe in the middle. I
In the
remember
Giro,
the
we had
Giro.
one when we went to Sardinia. We had a rest day, and that was the first kind of race where we had that rest day element. And it's learning how to deal with the rest day, because we've just raced back to back for 10 days before.
It's in the writing. Rest day. Put your feet up.
Depends who you ask on that term, but yeah.
I think it's also a good sign of where the Tour de France Femmes has gotten to, that we do actually have an attack this year for the first time ever, and that, you know, the chance for...
Do you think it's good?
No, I don't. I think it's good, objectively speaking. Personally speaking, it's going to be a disaster. But, you know, having the opportunity to bring it to a wider audience and making it an event of itself, you know, because the attack for the men's race is huge. You know, you get people coming from all over the world to take part in it, you know, gearing their training for the year on it. I've been as a spectator just for the attack several times over, and all of that extra industry it brings to the area, you know, it just makes something bigger of the whole event, doesn't it?
I think it actually as well kind of gives people warning that the race is going to come through, because you see all these people passing through, and if a sportif was to happen just out here, you'd think, oh, what's going on? And maybe if you're not in the world of cycling, you're just, you know, a local person in the village, and you stop, you talk to people, and you find out that actually, oh, the Tour de France is coming through here, and maybe it will attract more spectators.
And you'll get people coming along to take part in the attack, who then will stay and watch the race by the side of the road, who maybe wouldn't have done so otherwise, you know?
I think that's the main thing. I think that's the selling point for a lot of it, is that you get these people to come and ride the stage, see how hard it is, then you get to watch them. It's like a little holiday.
It will not be a holiday, Mr. Blythe.
All that I think of is you just going up that climb going, why? You know, that alone time you were saying you loved, you're going to hate it.
Also though, like because I've been in the French Alps and I've been doing a little tiny bit of climbing, but I've been doing it first thing in the morning. As soon as it starts to get warm, it's 2 Irish matches. But I'm going to be riding for such a long time, I'm going to be melting by the end of it.
You need to do some heat preparation.
How? Sit in an oven? I live in the Netherlands.
Wear a painter's suit on the bike. Unfortunately, that's what we all have to do.
Wear a what?
A painter's decorating like bin bag suit on the rollers inside. Yeah.
Are you kidding
You sweat it out,
me?
basically. Yeah.
I used to do it in the shower, in the bathroom, not in the shower, but in the bathroom.
Or in your winter kit on the rollers inside.
Put on the shower full blast, so it was all steamy, and just do it.
Really? And do you train it in there?
You are going to die.
Oh my god!
Before it starts.
I think it was Annemieke who trained in
the
sauna.
Yeah.
Really?
It's what we all have to do. Yeah.
I mean, you'll be fine.
Yeah,
What's the
we're
worst that
good.
can happen?
Elisa Longoborghini, the Italian champion, going backwards here.
Is about to just all kick off. You feel there's got to be some big attacks now from the likes of Vollering. Not able to get rid of them.
Perfect move from Cedrine.
Yeah, excellent.
As Cedrine Cabal is caught, that gives us 4 leaders here. Peterson tightens the shoes. Cabal looks across. Everyone down on the drops. Kim Lecourt's got to time this one. The sprint opens up, 200 metres to go. Kim Lecourt straight down the centre. Kim Lecourt and Pop Peterson, it looks like it's going to come down to between those. Kim Lecourt pulls clear. Kim Lecourt sits up and celebrates for AG Insurance Soudal. It is a first big classic victory for Kim Lecourt.
Wow.
Oh, I love it. It's like we were saying earlier, like she's only just really burst onto the scene anyway, but she's been right up there. She's already got obviously a Grand Tour stage win. But it's a bit like Puck with her win as well. It's like, it's one thing to be right up there, top 5, top 10 in these one-day races, but it feels like another thing entirely to take the win.
A monument as well.
And a monument as well. It's huge.
I think it completely changed it. It completely changed the way she's looked and respected in the peloton. Being that good but winning the way she did completely changes your outlook on, if you're a rider and she's in a break with you in a final, you'll look at her completely differently. Before you might have looked and gone, yeah, we'll give her some space. Now, I don't think so.
Before you looked at it and you thought, who's that world champion?
Oh, that beautiful jersey.
But
Does matter.
Even in the age,
When there are both Lotte and her, we have to see well.
It's ridiculous.
I know that she's winning as well, so, but I thought it was amazing. And what a great story she has. We're talking about stories.
Yeah, because I know her since she did mountain bike. She is very strong in marathon, and she worked part-time since, I think, 2 years ago. And then she
got no excuses then.
She said, okay, I go to the road. And last year you saw one stage in Giro and then a lot of good
She's been
top
really
10.
consistent.
She's consistent. And also this year, because normally in the middle of the race she drops, and then when it's 10K to finish, there is a Kim Lecourt. So I'm so happy for her because, and also because it's one of the girls that came from the off-road. So for me, it's it's a sign that this girl have really a big engine, and I think that maybe she can work for doing also GC. I don't know in which Grand Tour, but she can try.
There's again more of that trend that we saw in the men's racing, or see in the men's racing, that crossover from different disciplines. You see Kim, you see Puck Peterson polling for Amprovo as well,
There's a
coming
lot
back.
in the women's.
Is there that sense now in the women's peloton as well, Elynor, that there's a huge benefit to going and doing different disciplines?
I think yes. There's a lot of people are doing both, but I think it is very difficult to manage in terms of your rest periods. I see it a lot with my sister, choosing the time right. Yeah. I think when you're more suited to the Ardennes, it can be a lot easier to do both because you can take that rest period immediately after the cyclocross season and then come back after a good, strong training block in top form for the Ardennes. But you see a lot with like the skill crossover, the endurance crossover. They have that like punchiness, which is really suited to these climbs. And there's so many more now in the women's peloton.
I also love Demi's interviews afterwards and talking about how her body worked against her. She was on her period, so her hormones worked against her. I just think it seems so bizarre that we're in 2025 and still it's unusual to hear elite women talking about their menstrual cycle.
Right, I'm a bloke. We don't know enough about it, thank you very much. But explain to me, what is the difference? How much difference it make being on your period or not? Because a lot of men won't know about it.
It depends from each
individual,
because, for instance, me, I was full of water during my period, so...
Really bloated.
And the weeks before, you can retain up to 2-3 kilos sometimes.
Yeah.
So when you're doing the climbing races, it can really make a difference. But also with the fatigue, like your muscles just don't recover the same. So you really feel like if you go
just sluggish
in the red, like sometimes that can be just one too many times, and all of a sudden you're not there in the final anymore.
And it depends when in your cycle it happens as well. You know, for some people, the first day of their period or second or third day is the worst day. But for some people, you're just completely floored, you know, and that can last all through your life where you can barely move for one day of your cycle. And if a race happens on that day, then it's disastrous, I'd imagine.
And sometimes it's mentally as well, like just to keep picking yourself up if you do feel
it's just
a bit sluggish. You can be a bit more emotional. Like, just... If you're getting dropped and you're suffering too much, just that emotional side sometimes can tip you over the edge and you just can't push anymore.
Can you move it, your period?
No, obviously you can take birth control to stop it, but you can't really manipulate your period other than that. So it falls when it falls. So as well, some people might be incredibly regular, but for others, they could be 2 weeks apart, they could be 5 weeks apart. You won't necessarily know until it comes.
See what us men have to deal with. We don't. I'm only joking.
But I have to say, for the Vuelta at least, great for Demi to get it out of the way before it gets underway and she's back for her title defence.
I mean, she should win it, right?
Yeah.
We don't know who's racing.
We don't know who's racing yet.
How the hell don't we know who's racing?
No.
It's ridiculous.
The timing, at least, of the Tour de France, you were talking about this earlier, I think they do get it right, and you can't be certain before the first edition as to whether it's going to be too much to put it straight after the men's tour. But I love that all eyeballs and attention is focused on that race. I really feel elsewhere with the Giro, with the Vuelta, something has to happen to move them in the calendar somehow, surely, if they're to take on Grand Tour status, essentially.
Totally. Giro has to move at the end of the Giro Man, but now there is, I think, Tour of Britain, maybe?
At the start of June,
so we have to change a little bit, and also Vuelta, because I was talking with Elynor after. It's strange that Vuelta starts Sunday, and we have the start list, so we don't know. This is a point that is very important. If you
the build-up is half of it.
If we want to push for women's cycling, we need to have the leader, the start list. But not only for us, but also for the audience.
I think a lot of teams are waiting to see how the Ardennes go. Who's in
it's a
form,
tactics.
Who's too tired, who's crashed, and then I think you see often at the Vuelta there's a lot of last-minute changes because of that, and people have been on the long list and there's just been waiting for that call-up. But you also have the element of the team time trial going to the Vuelta, and if you want to put those riders in to have a strong team time trial, or if you're going to bring your best climbers and kind of take your Ardennes squad directly there.
I think you think if we change Vuelta and we put in the end of September.
Just make it the same as the men's.
Benefit
off of the men's race. I don't want to say
once it was like that.
Like the Tour.
Once it was like that, if you remember, was one.
It was in
3
September,
days.
Yeah, I think it's the best thing and obviously it's so much easier said than done, isn't it? Because you've got to move the entire calendar around. Other races have to be accommodating or make way. But I just think it's such a shame if we're going to build that narrative of 3 Grand Tours, there needs to be the space in the calendar for us all to pay attention to it. Otherwise, you know, the tree falling in the woods when no one's around to hear it.
I think that at the moment with the start list we have, Demi is the favorite one, but I want to see Pauline.
You want to see Pauline at the Vuelta?
Yeah.
Anna van der Breggen, surely.
I don't know though. Like, I think with Anna, she's up. For me personally, I think as soon as she found out Demi was leaving, she said, I'm going to come back. I know I can beat her. And I think we don't know the day that she said she's
Because
leaving.
let's not forget, she was Demi's sports director, so she will have known how she operates from the inside out.
And all the numbers. Every single number she'll have known everything of. And I think as soon as she left, she was like, I reckon I can get back to that. So I think her full focus will be the Tour. Is the Vuelta something she needs to do? To win the Tour?
Not needs to, but you would think she'd want to do some stage racing before the Tour de France.
For me now, she's like the Jonas Vingegaard, concentrated on the Tour de France only, and each race is a build-up to it. She's a little bit more aggressive, but for me, if you send her to all these races in between, you have the worry of crashing, you have the worry of being ill, all that kind of stuff. If you take an Anna van der Breggen as what we know as the leader of that team for the Tour de France, why would you even risk it? Yeah, and especially for her, you know, how many years has she signed?
Oh yeah, I don't know.
1, maybe 2, we don't know. So if it's all or nothing for that 1 year, why risk it going to the Vuelta? Why risk it doing the Giro? Go to training camps, do what you need to do and try and win it, which I think she can do.
Well, that's it then. Demi Vollering for the Vuelta a España, we've called it.
If she's riding.